We said at the top of the programme that we would be having a chat with John Duignan, and John joins us in studio. Afternoon, John.
How are you?
And John's story to tell is it's the book itself, The Complex and Insider Expose the Covert World of the Church of Scientology. And John has written this book. And we'll talk a little bit first about your background. Obviously enough, you had your upbringing itself, I think we could say, was difficult enough.
It was definitely difficult.
And do you think that maybe contributed to the vulnerability that you felt, that maybe you went looking for some sort of security?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can only tell you my take on it at the moment, right? I've gone back to school now, so I'm learning this now in psychology. But the actual facts about it is, my parents died when I was a child. I was 10 years old, and they died within a very, very short period of time of each other. So that left myself, my brothers and sisters, adrift and lost and deeply, deeply traumatized. We were moved over to family in Ireland. We're split up among various uncles and aunts,
right,
on my mum's side. All of them were wonderful people, but they could not. It's impossible to fulfill what the parents can fulfill.
Yeah.
That kind of trauma, that kind of loss for a child at that stage, leaves a huge gap. And it's not just it's what the parents represent. The parents represent something. They represent safety, security, future, a possibility to live. And there's something that is really, really ripped out of you when they die. Now, I covered it up as a child when I got to Ireland, and it was a lovely few years as just sort of a 10 to sort of 13-year-old.
Well, understandably, I think it's the sort of thing that you would do. It's a defence mechanism that you have when you're a 10-year-old, of course. Yeah,
exactly. And then of course it began rearing its head when I was in my teens, and I began to hit quite dark, I suppose depressions is the best way to describe it, really. But definitely difficulties, as well as the typical teenage problems that you get as growing up. I had the problems of this on top of that.
Yeah.
And I went through life trying to deal with this. And eventually I bumped into Scientology in Stuttgart, and they seemed to offer what I was looking for.
Right. And was it as simple as literally met them on the street?
It was actually that simple.
Yeah.
Scientology is geared to find people like me.
Yeah.
It is geared for that. And the people are pre-selected in several ways. The most major way, you get the stress test.
Yeah.
As you would have seen around Dublin a few times.
Yeah.
And then you get the personality test. And that's a graphic test, and it shows you on a graph. I came along right along the bottom. If you came along the top, you were rejected. They don't want you.
Yeah.
And it means you're an able, bright, normal person who doesn't have hang-ups.
Yeah.
You're no good to Scientology. They can't get a hook in on you. Me, however, down the bottom, that's our boy, whoosh.
And there would be an awful lot of people who would be in, I was not similar situations to you, but would have, things that were going on in their lives.
An awful lot of people, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is. I mean, different depressions or losses or whatever else. I think anybody who's susceptible to, say, an awful lot of Scientologists I've met are former junkies.
Yeah.
An awful lot of them are addictive personalities.
Right.
So that means it just points to a hole in the life somewhere.
But when you then became, when you became part of the Church of Scientology, is that there was, for a while at least, for quite a long time, there was an awful lot of that security or that anchor that you were craving anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't deny it. It's a very safe thing. You're shielded from the real world. You're shielded from yourself, actually, from having to sort of stand up and face the world yourself. Every moment of your day, every moment of my day for almost 22 years was fully and totally and completely controlled. Even when I was an executive, even though I was controlling other people, I was still being controlled, of course, by senior executives above me. And so I didn't have to make decisions.
And just in terms of day to day, then was it? It sounds like a very corporate structure, almost, for want of a better word.
Corporate. Yeah. And look, it's not a church.
Yeah.
Okay, I know. Scientology's PR says it's a church. It is not. It is a business, and it sells psychotherapy. That's what it does. And it sells very expensive psychotherapy, to get the levels. You're talking 50 grand to get to the first level. After that, you're talking not easily another 50 grand to get up to the next level. If you want to get up to where Tom Cruise is, he would have spent somewhere around $1 million.
Right.
Mark to get to where he is.
So
right?
there's some serious turnover going on there, isn't there?
It's incredible. I mean, really. I was very rapidly recruited into the militant inner corps, completely, fully dedicated, 100% zealot, fanatical core of Scientology called the Sea Organization. That's not what you see when you walk into Scientology organizations. It's completely hidden, but it's the steel or the metal in the spine of Scientology, and it owns everything. It owns all the bank accounts. The Sea Org owns all the buildings. It owns all the licenses. It licenses Scientologists to do Scientology, and those Scientologists pay to do